The electric vehicle, EV market in Europe presents fundamentally different characteristics from those observed in the United States, creating a significant gap in understanding between the two regions. While Americans often view EVs through a lens shaped by their own geographic, cultural, and economic reality, the European experience reveals a more mature electric automotive ecosystem, with greater market penetration and comprehensive government support. This analysis explores the nuances of this disparity, offering insights into how EV adoption in Europe differs from that in America, and why these differences matter in the context of the global transition to sustainable mobility. When Americans think of electric vehicles, many still consider them a futuristic novelty or a niche product for technology enthusiasts and environmentalists. This perception, however, is significantly misaligned with the European reality. In 2023, electric vehicles represented an impressive 14.6% of the automotive market in the European Union, almost double the 7.6% observed in the United States. This disparity is not just statistical, but reflects fundamental differences in the pace of adoption and cultural acceptance of electric vehicles. Projections indicate that by 2026, Europe will have approximately 997 electric vehicles sold per 100,000 inhabitants, while the US will have only 556, demonstrating a considerably faster transition pace on the European continent. This rapid adoption does not occur by chance, but is the result of decades of targeted public policies and a more deeply rooted culture of sustainability. The market penetration of electric vehicles varies significantly among European countries, with Scandinavian nations like Norway and Sweden leading globally in percentage terms. Norway, in particular, has transformed into a global case study, where electric vehicles already represent more than 80% of new car sales in certain months, a feat that seems almost unimaginable to the average American consumer. This massive adoption is not just the result of greater environmental awareness, but of a complex ecosystem of incentives, infrastructure, and urban design that facilitates and makes electric vehicle ownership advantageous in the European context. One of the aspects most misunderstood by Americans is the central role that European government policies play in accelerating the transition to electric vehicles. While the US offers limited tax credits and incentives, European governments have implemented much more comprehensive and, in some cases, aggressive approaches to boost electrification. The European tax structure historically penalizes combustion vehicles through high taxes on fossil fuels, which frequently represent more than 50% of the final price of gasoline and diesel, creating an economic environment where electric vehicles become financially attractive even without direct subsidies. Beyond fuel taxes, many European countries have implemented bonus-malus systems, which reward consumers who buy low-emission vehicles while penalizing those who opt for more polluting models. In France, for example, electric vehicle buyers can receive bonuses of up to €7,000, while those who buy high-emission SUVs may pay additional fees of up to €40,000. This dramatic contrast of incentives creates an environment where the rational economic choice often favors electric vehicles, something that the American market rarely experiences with the same intensity. The European Union has also established strict emission reduction targets for automobile manufacturers, with substantial fines for those who do not meet the objectives. These regulations have forced automakers to accelerate their electrification programs and direct significant investments toward the development of electric vehicles, resulting in greater availability of models in the European market. The most recent of these regulations, part of the Fit for 55 package, aims to reduce CO2 emissions from new cars by 55% by 2030 compared to 2021 levels, and ban the sale of new combustion cars starting in 2035, creating a clear timeline for the complete transition to zero-emission vehicles. Consumer preference differences between Europeans and Americans also play a crucial role in the divergence of electric vehicle markets. Americans often primarily associate electric cars with premium models like Tesla, or with large vehicles like electric pickups, reflecting the American cultural preference for larger vehicles. In contrast, European consumers traditionally favor compact and medium-sized cars, a trend that naturally extends to the electric vehicle market. This fundamental difference in preference has significant implications for the development and adoption of electric vehicles in both regions. In Europe, the success of electric vehicles is not primarily being driven by the luxury segment, but by the growing availability of affordable and compact models like the Volkswagen ID, Renault Zoe, Dacia Spring, and Fiat 500e. These vehicles, many of which aren't even offered in the American market, perfectly meet European urban mobility needs, where daily distances are typically shorter and parking space is more limited. The spatial and energy efficiency of these compact models also makes them more suitable for European urban planning and infrastructure, which were not designed to accommodate the large vehicles prevalent in the US. The American perception of electric vehicle charging infrastructure often focuses on range anxiety, the fear of running out of battery on long trips. This concern, although relevant in the American context with its vast distances, does not adequately reflect the European reality, where the approach to charging infrastructure is fundamentally different. Europe has adopted a strategy of high-density charging points in urban areas and along transport corridors, rather than prioritizing widely dispersed high-power charging stations. In 2020, Europe already had more than 200,000 public charging points, with European Union plans to expand this number to 3 million by 2030. This dense network of chargers, combined with shorter average travel distances and greater availability of public transportation for long trips, creates an environment where range anxiety is significantly reduced. Many Europeans charge their vehicles at home or at work for longer periods, rather than depending on frequent fast charging, a usage pattern that differs from the American model centered on gas stations. European cities have also implemented innovative approaches to urban charging, integrating chargers into existing infrastructure such as public lighting poles, municipal parking lots, and shopping centers. This invisible integration of charging infrastructure into the urban fabric contrasts with the independent supercharging stations that dominate the American imagination about electric vehicle charging. The fundamental difference in perspective, charging as a ubiquitous and low-profile service versus charging as a discrete and visible experience, illustrates how cultural context shapes the implementation of technology. One of the most significant differences between Americans and Europeans lies in the perception and valuation of the environmental impact of electric vehicles. While debates in the US often question the environmental credentials of electric vehicles, focusing on concerns about battery production or electricity generation, the European consensus on the environmental benefits of EVs is considerably stronger. This perception difference is partially rooted in different degrees of climate science acceptance and partially in different energy matrices. Comprehensive studies conducted by the European Environment Agency have demonstrated that, even considering the entire life cycle including production and electricity generation, electric vehicles in Europe produce approximately 3 times fewer CO2 emissions than their gasoline or diesel equivalents. This substantial environmental benefit is widely recognized and communicated in European discussions about mobility, creating a stronger public understanding of the role of electric vehicles in mitigating climate change. As the European energy matrix continues to decarbonize, with many countries achieving significant levels of renewable generation, this environmental advantage of electric vehicles continues to increase. Europe is leading globally, not only in electric vehicle adoption but also in the development of a complete approach to the battery life cycle, an aspect often underestimated by American observers. The European Commission has developed comprehensive battery regulations that establish strict sustainability requirements, including limits for the carbon footprint in production, ambitious recycling targets, and rules to ensure the ethical supply of critical raw materials such as lithium and cobalt. While the US is still in the early stages of developing its domestic battery supply chain, Europe is already building a complete ecosystem that incorporates local production, second use, such as stationary storage and large-scale recycling. Companies like Swedish Northvolt are developing recycling processes that can recover up to 95% of critical metals from used batteries, creating an almost closed loop that significantly reduces the need for primary mining. This holistic approach to battery technology reflects the European tendency to consider long-term implications and build sustainable systems, in contrast to the more immediate American focus on product development and market expansion. The European experience with electric vehicles offers valuable lessons for the American market, illustrating how coordinated policies, well-planned infrastructure, and systematic approaches can significantly accelerate the transition to sustainable mobility. As the U.S. continues its own electrification journey, understanding the nuances of the European approach, from government incentives to vehicle design preferences and charging strategies, can help inform decisions that benefit American consumers and advance shared environmental goals. Perhaps the main lesson is that successful electric vehicle adoption doesn't just depend on technological advances or temporary incentives, but on an integrated approach that aligns public policies, urban planning, energy infrastructure, and consumer behavior. The European model demonstrates that when these elements are strategically aligned, the transition to electric vehicles can occur much more quickly than many Americans imagine possible. As both regions continue to face the challenges of climate change and sustainability, bridging this understanding gap about electric vehicles can contribute to more effective collaboration on global mobility solutions.